Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Tim, and I'm the campus pastor in Conklin. And I have a question for you. Have you ever played Capture the Flag or Hide and Seek in the dark? Well, if you did, were you able to use a flashlight? Did you use your phone as a flashlight? And how did that go? Well, a number of years ago, I went on a wilderness trip to Algonquin Park, which is way up in Canada. And it was part canoeing and part hiking. Now, I remember one day it was extremely long. We basically did 2 days worth of traveling in one. And I remember we were canoeing through this lake, and the sun is starting to go down, and it's getting a little cooler out, and we still have a ways to go. Well, before you know it, it is pitch black out, and we still have not arrived at our campsite. Now I'm starting to get tired and hungry. I'm even getting a little hangry, right? I need a Snickers bar. I'm frustrated because I just want to be done. And then we get to this one narrow part of the lake where we have to get our canoe, which is about 3 feet wide, in between two rocks, which is sort of like 3.5 feet wide. So it's pretty narrow and it's pitch black out. And it just happens to be going against the current. So we have these two rocks, we're trying to go through this current, and we're just paddling and paddling like as hard as we can. We approach these rocks and bump right into the side of the rock, and the current just spits us right back out. We do this a few more times, and finally, in my frustration, I start digging through my bag. I pull out my headlamp, put it on my head, turn it on, and finally I can see. So we go again. I just paddle as hard as we can. We're going right for the middle and whoosh, right through. On that day, I learned that a little light makes all the difference in the world. And that's not just true for wilderness trips or capture the flag or hide and seek. It's true for life. Now, before coming to Bridgewater, I spent over 10 years serving in student ministry. I was a youth pastor, and I learned that not all of your home lives are filled with love, kindness, and prayer. In fact, I know some of your lives are filled with abuse and oppression. And today, I want to pull the abuse out of the darkness and bring it into the light. So first, let me define abuse for you. Abuse treats someone as if he or she were an object to control and use rather than a person to love and value. Often it occurs as a person in a position of greater influence uses his or her abilities or influence to hurt or harm someone who's underneath their influence or power, really, in order to control them. Did you know that 1 in 10 high school students have experienced physical violence from a dating partner in this past year? Did you know that 1 in 4 girls experience violence at the hands of a boyfriend? And 1 in 7 guys experience violence at the hands of a girlfriend? Darkness is rampant. And there are many people, many of you, living under oppression. Darkness, evil, wickedness, it's all rampant, and God hates it. And today, I want to bring the abuse out in the light. I want to expose it for what it is and help us see God's heart for abuse. So let's start by going to Luke chapter 4. Jesus has just returned from Galilee, and he's kicked off his public ministry, and he has now come back to his hometown, Nazareth. Take a look at what happens. Luke chapter 4, let's start reading in verse 16. When he came to the village of Nazareth, his boyhood home, he went as usual to the synagogue on the Sabbath and stood up to read the scriptures. The scroll of Isaiah the prophet was handed to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where this was written: "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim that captives will be released, that the blind will see, that the oppressed will be set free, and that the time of the Lord's favor has come." Did you catch that? Jesus says, I have come to bring good news to the poor. I have been sent to release the captives, to set the oppressed free. That word captive refers to prisoners of war. Jesus has come to release those who have been taken captive. The allusion is to Israel, both as captive exiles and as prisoners of Satan in spiritual bondage. Jesus has come to set those who are being held captive physically and spiritually free. Now, I know that some of you live in homes where mom and dad fight a lot. And sometimes there's yelling and there's screaming, and you've watched them throw things at each other. You've seen them put holes in the wall, and you've seen them even hit each other. And some of you, you've seen so much and you live in fear. Maybe you've been hit or yelled at in ways that have made you feel terrible. And it wasn't just one time, that's life. Now, the word oppressed, it's a verb that means to cause something to be broken into pieces, to cause something to lose its validity or to weaken. And I know that's how some of you feel. It's not you, right? Maybe you have friends who live in that world, right? People you go to school with, they live in that world. And maybe for some of you, you've been forced to do things that no one should ever do. And I'm sorry that you have gone through those things. If that's you, here is what I want you to hear. Jesus came to set you free. In fact, God's heart for the oppressed is clear. He wants you to be free. I know that many in this room have experienced oppression. You've gone through some terrible things, wicked and evil things, and it feels like those experiences are just breaking you. You've been a victim of abuse, and an oppressor has oppressed you, and it's wreaking havoc in your life. And I want you to know that God sent Jesus to have a ministry of setting the oppressed free. Jesus never intended you to live in that way, and he cares about you. I know abuse is a wide category, and a lot of things can fit into that category. So let me just take a minute and just talk about the different types of abuse. First, there's physical abuse. Hitting, slapping, shoving, grabbing, pinching, biting, pulling hair, etc. All of those are physical abuse. But next, there's sexual abuse. They are pressuring or attempting to pressure you to do anything sexual without your consent. That's sexual abuse. And then there's emotional abuse, right? They're undermining your sense of self-worth. This may include constant criticism or name calling. They're constantly just putting you down and making you feel bad about yourself, making you think that you're crazy or humiliating you or making you feel guilty. All of that is emotionally abusive behavior. But I want to be careful here because I know there are many good homes and good marriages in which sometimes cruel words are exchanged. And there are many bad but non-abusive homes and relationships in which couples fight, mom and dad fight, people fight in hurtful ways. But I also want to acknowledge that many of you watching right now might be experiencing emotional abuse and don't even know it. Now, whatever's happening in your home, at school, or in your relationships, I want you to know that Jesus hates evil. He hates wickedness and the abuse, and the abuse that you have experienced. It's not okay. God loves and cares for you, and he wants to set you free. But there's another thing that I want you to know. Listen to what is recorded in Mark chapter 7. This is what Jesus says, Mark 7, verse 20. And then he added, "It is what comes from inside that defiles you. For from within, out of a person's heart come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, wickedness, deceit, lustful desires, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these vile things come from within. They are what defile you. Did you catch that? All the evil thoughts of the wickedness, the lust, and the vile things that you and I do, they all come from within our heart. They're overflowing from our heart. So when I do something sinful, it comes from within my own heart. Meaning that when I sin, it's on me. It's not on the people around me. This also means when someone does something evil to you, the evil and the wickedness that you have experienced overflow from their heart. If you've been experiencing abuse or wickedness or oppression, I want you to know the abuse is not your fault. I want that to really set in. The abuse is not your fault. All sin overflows from our hearts. It's not what you wore, not what you drank. You weren't in the wrong place at the wrong time. You didn't do anything. It's not how angry they are or how difficult it is to get along with them. It's not because they were abused. People are responsible for their actions, and it's not your fault. Now, in a moment, we're going to break out into our small groups, and I want you to know that this is a safe place to talk. It's a safe place to share and ask questions. And if you need to pull a leader aside and say, hey, what Tim talked about today, man, that really resonated with me. Would you pray for me? I also want you to know that next Sunday in church, we're going to be talking about this very topic, but we're just going to go a lot deeper. So as we look forward, what do we need to do? I want to help you to continue to shed light on it. And here's the one thing you need to know. Speaking is redemptive. Abuse requires silence in order for it to grow and thrive. As one Holocaust survivor famously said, I swore never to be silent whenever and wherever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. When you choose to speak about your abuse, it is the first act you can take to bring sin into the light where it can be addressed. So shed some light on it, because speaking is redemptive. Next, I would encourage you to get into the Psalms. Psalm 27 is an awesome one. Read it, meditate on it, write it out, make it your own, rewrite it, and make it your prayer. And write it out and rework it over and over again until it really captures the cries of your heart. Because the Psalms are amazing, and they have the ability to put your emotions and my emotions into words. You know, we really care about you, and we want to help you in any way that we can. And we are really thankful for the opportunity to walk alongside you. Know this, that God loves you, and we do too. This week as you go, let's serve people and not use them.